everyone, I'm Kate Kennedy and I'm here with day 49 of 100 Days of Kane, PA. And throughout the first 48 days, you've heard a lot about our school system and how the school, but more specifically the teachers, really have made such an impact in the lives of so many people. So today we're going to talk with Judy Kessler, who is going into her 35th and final year of teaching at Kane High School. And she has some great stories to share because she's not only a teacher, but also a coach, yearbook advisor, and so much more to her students. So I'm going to go ahead and flip around and we're going to head over here and say hello. Hello, Mrs. Kessler.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good today. Or I should say, I'm doing very well.
English teacher.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us, sharing your stories. Let's go ahead and start with how did you get to Kane? Because you're not from here.
No, I grew up in inner city Pittsburgh, and after I graduated from Slippery Rock in 1983, I thought, well, as a teacher, I don't really want to teach in the city public school system because I went through it, and was not conducive to what I wanted to experience as a teacher. So my boyfriend at the time was Chris Kessler, and so I moved up here where he lived, and the rest is history.
So when you first moved here, what were you doing? What was your job?
Well, my very first job here was working at Papa Nick's, which was quite an experience. I got to waitress in the afternoon, and then I was in the bar at night, and I got to see a lot of really great bands while I was working in the bar. But the bar hours and being a bartender weren't really what I wanted to do. So then there was an opening at Shady Point. So within, I think, probably a month or so, I ended up working for Link and Patty Lindquist, and those two people were super fantastic to work for. And Shady Point was a really cool place to work because I got to meet so many people in the town working there. There were so many regulars, and the police would stop in a couple of times a day, and so I met Larry Anderson and Steve German and Yogi, Chief Fisher. I got to meet a lot of people that way. I met other teachers. I met just people that owned stores in town, and it was just a really cool place to work for a while before I could get my teaching job.
Yeah, and especially being new to town,
Yeah.
to have such a social position would make it nice to get to know the people of all different types.
Right,
around town.
yeah, and I got to know a lot of kids, and just the atmosphere there was friendly, and I really enjoyed working with people that I'm still friends with, Sonia Pop and Amber Bergman and Bev Austin, Lisa Hoddle. Those are people that I started working with, and I really enjoyed it.
Did you have a favorite meal there?
I don't really think. Food is probably one of my least important topics. So I wasn't really into like hamburgers or anything like that. The French fries were good.
Yes.
And I spent most of my time out front, but I spent some time in the kitchen, and I have a few burn marks, one from Link, from the grease pit or, whatever. So every time I look at my wrist, I think about Link because there's a big scar there from when he dripped the basket on my hand.
All right, so then from Shady Point, what did you do next?
I also worked at the little fitness center that was in where the Dollar General is right now. But then I was subbing a lot. And then I had an opportunity for a job in December of '85. And so I remember walking into Jack Headland's office, and he said, "Hey, do you want a job?" And I said, "Absolutely." So he said, "Go talk to Mrs. Kimbrough and she'll tell you what to do." So I went back upstairs, and that was that. And I've been there ever since. So it's been great.
So what about your time in the school? Like, what are some of the things that have made it for you? You taught English this whole time?
Yes. I started with 10th graders, and then I moved to 9th grade, and then I've had seniors for about the last 15 or so years. Theater arts, I taught a lot of classes like great books and poetry and speech, and yearbook as a class. The way yearbooks are made now, it's impossible to do them without a class because it's all computerized, and the kids that are in so many other things that we'd never get it done if all we did was after school. So that's a great class to have. But yeah, I taught with some great teachers like Barb Kimbrough and Jennifer Robinson, Carla Lewis, John Stanko. Those were some fun days back then. And they still are. I I don't feel like I have a job. I never feel like I have to go to the drudges of a job. I've always felt since the first day that I'm just going to school and I'm just sort of in charge of what happens around me. So there has not been an August, even this one, that I have regretted that it's August and it's time for school. But this year's a little different for me because I'm not coaching as head coach of volleyball. I am a volunteer for the sport because I couldn't completely let it go. And Kelly Johnson, she and Tracy Pearson are doing a great job through the summer. I've been to some open gyms and participated a little bit there and going to help them again next week. But I felt it was time for me to maybe wean out of that a little bit, even though I did it for almost 30 years. So it's pretty difficult to kind of just completely walk away.
Yeah, and that's
know.
such a significant part of your life.
It is because, I have these things that I have on the table that are just, things that the kids have given me over the years where they write me notes and, they make a ball with notes on it. And, athletes in softball is the same thing. I've got a ball from last year's group. Athletes are such an important part of any school, I think. They represent, they uphold a standard. And to be able to coach at this level so many wonderful, fantastic girls has really been a blessed experience. I wouldn't trade it for anything, and winning is fantastic, of course. Who doesn't like to win? But ultimately, it's the life lessons and the way that the kids deal with adversity. When you see them kind of growing up on the court or on the softball field, that really matters. This was the very first year of softball. We've done 15 seasons of that. And these kids, every single one of these kids in this picture, I'm still in contact with.
Wow.
And I've just been able to coach with some great people. Gary Johnson's been with me since the beginning, and Pat Tagani and Ike, and I just have so many pictures that these kids give me that are so important, and Daria and Smiley are kids that we go to softball or to pirate baseball games in the summer when we can. And when Daria comes home, she always stops to see me, or we get together somehow. And, here's my Ella. I just feel that coaching so fulfilled such a big part of my life that I don't regret 1 minute of it. Sometimes it was hard. Sometimes it was really heartbreaking to win 4 district runner-ups in a row in volleyball. 4 years in a row, we could not win that title. That's great success, but at the same time, it's still losing in the final game when it really mattered. But I've had my share of success with great athletes, and to be a part of that with them has been super fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and you've made such a difference for so many of the athletes that you've coached too. Like your leadership and your modeling of how to win, how to lose, how to persevere has really made a difference. I know I've heard from so many people the impact that you've had.
Well, that's kind of them to say. And I can tell you that in 30 years of coaching, you grow. And I'll admit, when I first started, I wanted to win and I didn't know how to lose. And a wise man named Jack Hedlund said to me, a really good coach is not determined by what winning record. A good coach is determined by how he or she loses and how she reacts to that. In other words, how do you face adversity? And who are you when nobody is looking? That's what ultimately matters. And that really stuck with me. And it kind of changed my philosophy a little bit and geared me to be a better coach and to say to kids, softball is where we really apply that, because volleyball, I've been blessed to have a lot of great success. Softball, not so much. We've had some trying seasons where we had 0 or 2 or 4 wins out of 16 or 17 games, and to keep the kids motivated to teach them to deal with the adversity and to teach them to find the good things that we did and not just focus on the bad, but then look at those mistakes that we made and correct those the next day or the next game. You know, those are the kind of lessons that came out of softball and completely come out of any time you're not winning, you know?
And it sounds like you learn these lessons
Sure.
along with the girls sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, and I'll never believe that I'm the only teacher here because those kids have taught me a lot about life, about myself, just about anything in general, you know, how to do something, especially technology, you know. But they teach you as much as, if you're open to it, as much as you can teach them.
Yeah.
It's a very much a two-way street. And so many of my athletes are still so in my heart. You know, the Johnson sisters, Sarah and Elizabeth, are like children to me. They're like my daughters. You know, currently the Marconi girls, you know, Hannah Buell, those girls are just so tight in my heart that, you know, I'll never forget them. And there are so many others, Missy Wahlberg and Misty White, and just so many. I can't even name them all.
Right.
You
right.
know?
Yeah. What a special gift that you.
Oh,
received.
sure, absolutely.
And you mentioned coaching alongside and teaching alongside some really great teachers. Can you share a time when you really felt supported by them?
Carla Lewis was my mentor, and my first year, as it would be for everybody, was pretty tough. I didn't really know what I was doing, and I always feel bad. The teachers, their first year kids, I always feel like they're probably gypped a little bit. I guess that's just part of the way that it goes. But I went down to her one day and I said, I don't know that I can do this. And she sat me down and gave me a big dose of reality and, you know, basically said to me that I could do it and I should do it because she knew that in my heart this was where I belonged. And that is absolutely true because, as I've already said, I don't look at this as a job. This is my career that I feel like I got pulled into because I'll be honest, I had no plan. Back in the 70s, a lot of girls didn't go to college. I had no intention of going to college. But my senior year, I decided, you know, I think I'll go to college. And my mother asked me where. And I said, I'll go to Slippery Rock. It's only 50 miles up the road. And she said, what are you going to do? And I said, I'll be an English teacher because I love English class and it's pretty easy for me. And I've had some pretty cool English teachers. So I think I'll go do that. I mean, that was really all that I put into it. And that seems ridiculous in today's world. But in the 70s, I don't know that that was all that ridiculous. So I just feel that something pushed me in that direction. And Carla Lewis kept me in that. And Barb Kimbrough also along the way. Probably those two teachers more than anybody influenced me to be who I am today as a teacher, for sure.
Yeah, and so when we first started talking, I had made the assumption that you moved here for a teaching job, and I learned, you know, from you talking that you came because your husband was here.
Yeah.
And so he passed.
Yes.
And the school really showed up for you.
Yeah, they did. He was diagnosed with leukemia in 94, and he survived 9 months. So he died in 95. And my son was 5 years old. And, you know, I had to leave, of course. And I stayed with Chris in the Pittsburgh Hospital in the bone marrow unit for most of that time. And so my son was up here with his aunt and uncle and his grandparents. And then one day a week, Chris's mother would come down and stay so I could come home and see Alan and just kind of get myself together. But I had no income. Chris worked at Stackpole, and so his income was over shortly after he got sick. He was diagnosed in July, and then my income was gone by, I want to say, October or November. And so all of a sudden I'm getting these checks, this money, and I really didn't know where it came from. And so I talked to Carla and Barb about it, and it was from the district. You know, one of the things about this town, after Chris died, people thought that I was going to pack up and leave. And I thought, no, because this is exactly the kind of environment that I wanted to raise my son in. The people in this town rise up and they stand up for each other. And so many people helped me in so many different ways, not just with money. After Chris's funeral, the amount of money that came in cards was unbelievable. The generosity of people who didn't really know me outside of I was maybe a teacher to their children or a coach to their children. And the bills were piling up, and so I was paying them as best as I could. And then I realized that I never had gotten a bill from the cable company that we had back then. And I cannot remember the name of that cable company. Maybe somebody out there knows and they can post it. But I didn't get a bill for those 9 months. And so I went up to the store, was across from the post office. And I went up there and I said to them, I know that I owe you money but I don't know what happened to the bills. And whoever was there said to me, you don't have to worry about that. We knew your situation. We knew you weren't home more than a couple of days a month. And so we just did not send you any bills, and you don't owe us any money for all of that time. Which, maybe doesn't seem significant to some people, but to me, that was absolutely amazing. Amazing that a corporation, a company in this small town would do such a thing for me. I mean, who was I? I wasn't anybody all that special. And just the people, going to the store and have people talk to me and show me their support. And I remember even at Chris's viewing that a man came in and he said to me, this was the very end of the night, it was 9 o'clock, and he said to me, I know you don't know me, but I just want to tell you that things will get a little bit easier. It doesn't seem like it now. But, he gave me that whole spiel about time. And of course, I didn't really know what to say to him. But he said he knew. He knew from experience firsthand that it would take a lot of time. And he was right. And with the support of the people and the teachers and even the students, who treated me very gently when I went back to school in April. I just, and the other teachers in the administration and the things that they would do for me just to be helpful. That's what matters. It doesn't matter how rich your town is or how much industry you can spout about. What matters is the heart and soul of the people in it. And every town has its problems, of course, but the problems here to me are so buried by the goodness of the people around here and in this town that even in my retirement, I'm not going anywhere. I have a beautiful place to live. It's beautiful, it's green, it's quiet. One of the first things I noticed when I moved here was how quiet it was. Instead of the strident noise of the city, it was the calmness and the peace, and you can hear the wind in the trees and the birds. And it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. It's so true.
What about your neighborhood? Do you have any stories or thoughts on the neighborhood that you live in?
Well, I'm lucky to live kind of, you grew up in our neighborhood here, and I had just fantastic and still have fantastic neighbors, and the little kids play on the street, and there's no worry. People don't go whipping through here, and everybody looks out for everybody else. Alan, when he was about 6 years old, just simply disappeared off this deck. And I thought, oh, where did he go? So I ran to the other neighbors and I said, do you have him? And nobody had him. And so everybody came out and we were looking for this 6-year-old. Well, when I had knocked on Becky Ibanez's door next door, she didn't hear me, but that's where he was. Oh. So we did find him and he was safe and sound. But, Vicky and Ernie and the Hollingsheads and John and Lois Mays next door, everybody was so willing to help. And we used to have, do you remember when we used to have the picnics and the street party? The block party, and just, it's just such a nice corner of Kane to live in down here that I just really love it. And I think, if I moved, I would want exactly this. And I won't get it. I don't think I would get it anywhere else. And so I'm saying I like it too much.
Yeah. Well, between the kindness that you've experienced from people here and the setting, especially in the summer,
Yeah, right. In the winter.
it is such a wonderful place to live.
It is. I love it here.
And I loved it when I first sat down and you brought all of this out, and you're like, "This is who I am."
Yeah, really. All this stuff that hasn't blown away.
Yeah.
You know, just volleyball, sports, softball. You know, I have this book of volleyball that every
this is your
single.
first team?
This is my very first team. Was 1987. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So
And
you- and-
what's so great is that these girls are the mothers of my current players. Well, you know, the girls that are playing now.
Oh,
over
cool.
these
So you've gotten
years.
to see
Oh,
generations
yeah.
go through.
Sure. Yeah, it's just, you know, just year after year after year after year. Oh, let's show them you, Kate.
Oh.
You're in here. There you are.
Oh, there we go. That was a
There
fun
you are.
team.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and just all the way and all the way, and just all these great, fantastic girls that I got to coach. It's just amazing, amazing, and more amazing. You know, and that's just volleyball. You know, softball is another story. So,
Yeah.
you know, in yearbook, here's my very first yearbook, which was appropriately entitled Don't Panic. Carl Carlson was the editor of that. And then this is the current book that is by Hallie Saff and Kristen Zilkowski.
I love that it's a Polaroid, which is kind of like a
Yes.
throwback to
Right,
the time
right.
of your first year.
Because, yeah, it's retrospect because this is volume 100.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The 100th volume of The Hurricane. Yeah, so...
And were you ever in any theater, like with Cane Players or anything?
Yes, I did. I teach theater arts at the high school, and then I became friends with Ned and Linda Carger in the late 1990s, I think it was. And so they kind of got me into the theater stuff. So I did Cinderella, we did Annie, we did Oliver, and then I really couldn't be in anymore because that's when we started the softball program. We had campaigned for it for years, and so it began in 2006. And so since the productions were usually in the spring, then I had to kind of bow out. I helped with Joseph, helped Beth Lenaway with that, and a few other ones. But since then, we've had some smaller productions, and we're hoping to do something pretty soon. You know, and I did the Mrs. Kane thing with
Oh,
General Kane with
Yes.
Ned Carger.
Yes.
He and I did that, and that was kind of fun. And I do miss theater, but so maybe it's something that once I retire, I can get back into even more.
that's what I was
You
going to
know?
ask. I mean,
Yeah.
coaching is a huge commitment.
It is,
And teaching is too. And so what are you going to do with your time? Have you even thought about that yet? Or
Honestly, I would like to volunteer at the high school and to help some of the kids that are sort of falling through the cracks, and maybe go up a couple of days a week and help them get caught up with their work. You know, I think I might maintain some volunteering with volleyball and softball, if those coaches want me to be around. And I don't know. I probably pick up some more theater stuff. Maybe think about a spring musical. You know, again, it's kind of tough to do a spring musical at the high school when I'm coaching softball.
Sure.
So I gave up volleyball this year coming, but I haven't given up softball yet. So I'm still on the fence on whether I'm actually going to finish the year with a sport or without. Because my initial thought was, I think I'll just ease out with no sports and then finish my teaching. But I don't know. So that's still a mystery to be solved.
Well, it sounds like your career path and your life here in Kane has been probably richer than you ever expected.
Yes,
So I have no
absolutely.
doubt you'll find the same
Yeah.
experience in retirement.
Yeah, I hope so. And you know, there are plenty of community things that I could probably get myself involved in now that I'm not so tied up, because the hours of teaching in sports is a lot of hours.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
So,
Well, is there anything else that you wanted to share or that you want to talk about before we wrap up today?
boy, I think I've talked about myself for plenty of time. So I just appreciate that you thought I would be a good candidate for the 100 days.
Well, you were recommended for a reason, and it was great to hear your story. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Kate.
All right, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. And I always love hearing about how the kindness of people here in Kane has made a difference to a person. And it sounds like not only has the kindness of the friends and family members and neighbors made a difference to Mrs. Kessler, but also she's made her kindness and her goodness has made such a difference to so many people here too. I know a lot of people who are watching have had her or know her or are friends with her. So we would love for you to share a story as she enters into her last year of teaching at the Kane High School. So please, if you have a story to share about Mrs. Kessler and your time with her, write it in the comments below. Thanks again for tuning in, and I can't believe it, but tomorrow I'll see you again for day 50. We're going to be halfway through tomorrow. This time is going fast, so I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.